Several viewers have contacted me. They have commented as well in comments sections of my videos. They want to know what's happening in Afghanistan. Taliban has launched a new offensive in Afghanistan. What's happening there? So I thought of drawing some parallels between Afghan war and Tigray war. What are the common things that we have seen in these two wars? Firstly, a little background of war in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a landlocked country. It's the only country which has been invaded by two superpowers within the last 50 years. It was invaded by the USSR in 1979, viewers. Back then, Americans intervened secretly. America, in collaboration with Pakistan, recruited fighters from across the world, especially from the Middle East. These fighters were brought to Afghanistan to fight invading Russian forces. Osama bin Laden back then was a freedom fighter. He was fighting backed by Americans against Russians. Russia was defeated, USSR rather, and at the end of 1980s, Russians had to withdraw from Afghanistan. But after that, we saw that the USSR disintegrated. So the defeat in Afghanistan was a very costly one for the USSR. After that, civil war started in Afghanistan. There are several ethnic groups in Afghanistan. Pashtuns are the largest group with around 40% Pashtuns. Then Tajiks around 25%. Then Uzbeks and Hazaras. The civil war which started after the withdrawal of Russians, it was ethnic and sectarian as well. Then in 1996, Taliban came into being in Kandahar province. Kandahar is the birthplace of this movement, Taliban was. And Taliban was said to be backed by Pakistani intelligence agencies, because Pakistani agencies had penetration in Afghanistan as they had been fighting in collaboration with CIA against Russians. Pakistan shares a border with Afghanistan, so Pakistan wanted to stop Russia from taking control of Afghanistan. Taliban, backed by Pakistani agencies, they swept across Afghanistan, viewers, and they took control of more than 70 to 80% of Afghanistan in 1990s. What happened after that? After that, the fighters which were trained by Americans, they turned against America. And in 2001 September, World Trade Center was targeted by these fighters. America blamed these fighters, and thousands of people were killed in that attack. America demanded the handing over of Osama bin Laden from Afghani government, Afghani Taliban-led government. Taliban government was led by Mullah Umar back then, and Osama bin Laden was leading, he was heading Al-Qaeda, he was in Afghanistan. Taliban refused to hand over Osama bin Laden. America, along with NATO allies, attacked Afghanistan. Since then, fighting has been going on in Afghanistan. But since 2001, when America attacked Afghanistan, Americans and NATO's could not control entire Afghanistan. Taliban remained in control of more than 50% of Afghanistan since the start of American invasion in 2001. Then America started its withdrawal, viewers. Americans had to withdraw. Though America installed a government, elections were held in Afghanistan, presidential system of government was introduced, but this American-backed government was restricted to urban areas. Mainly, Taliban were in control of most of Afghanistan. With the withdrawal of Americans, Taliban has launched a new offensive. And now Taliban are sweeping across Afghanistan. They are taking control of those areas which are not traditionally their power bases. They are sweeping across northern areas along Afghanistan, Tajikistan border, Afghanistan, Turkmenistan border, Afghanistan-Uzbekistan border. These areas have not been traditional strongholds of Taliban. Taliban were mainly based in Kandahar, in areas like Helmand. But now they are sweeping across entire Afghanistan. 2 days ago, Taliban captured 2 key border crossings. Taliban captured border crossing Qilla Islam, which is between Afghanistan and Iran. Then Taliban captured Torgandi border crossing, which is between Afghanistan and Turkmenistan. So Taliban are in control of almost all border crossings between Afghanistan and its neighbors. American-backed government is now confined to Kabul, capital of Afghanistan, and some other urban areas. And Taliban are rapidly advancing towards Kabul as well. Now, viewers, let's draw some parallels between Afghan war and Tigray war. In both wars, we saw that locals were against invading armies. In Tigray, locals backed Tigray defense forces. Same is the case in Afghanistan, whereas people of Afghanistan saw US and NATO forces as invaders, and they were on the side of Taliban. Secondly, terrain is also very similar. Afghanistan is a landlocked country, just like Ethiopia, and it's a mountainous country, just like Tigray is mountainous. There's dry mountains in Tigray and in Afghanistan. And this terrain played a key role in helping the defenders. So Taliban made the most of this terrain, just like TDF made the most of terrain, and TDF managed to be in control of central Tigray. And despite their best efforts, Eritrean, Ethiopian National Defense Forces, they could not capture central Tigray. We saw the same in Afghanistan, that Americans, their NATO allies, with all the sophisticated weaponry in the world, they could not dislodge Taliban from their power bases in mountainous areas. What about involvement of world powers in these two wars? We saw US backing TPLF diplomatically. US imposed sanctions on Ethiopian government. Russia and China backed Ethiopian government at UN Security Council. But in Afghanistan, we saw much more involvement of neighboring countries and world powers. US was there with all its NATO allies. China wanted the US out of Afghanistan because China shares border with Afghanistan, and a Chinese region which shares border with Afghanistan is a relatively destabilized region. You might have heard about Uyghur Muslims. International news outlets claim that Chinese authorities are committing atrocities against Uyghur Muslims. Uyghur Muslims live in those areas which are close to China-Afghanistan border. And Chinese wanted Americans to withdraw from Afghanistan. At the same time, Chinese also want to ensure that Taliban type extremism does not enter China. Then Pakistan has been accused of backing Taliban as well. Pakistan accuses India of being in Afghanistan, though India does not share any border with Afghanistan. There has been very significant involvement of neighbors and world powers in Afghanistan. But in both Tigray and Afghanistan, invading forces, they had to withdraw. And war is going on in both the areas. Let's see what happens in coming days. Thank you for watching.